This is Season 4, Episode 37 of In Touch with Terri, a podcast for aesthetics professionals. Today's episode is titled, Perfecting the Art of Practice Management.
What does a practice manager mean to you?
To me, that is somebody who is your biggest cheerleader. You know, when things are tough, they're leading from the front, they're moving those mountains, they're moving those obstacles so that their people can grow and they can succeed and they can become the best version of themselves. And when it's, things are going great and it's time to celebrate, that's when you take that step back and you let your team be in the spotlight. It's knowing the numbers, it's being the first one there in the morning to make sure that those lights are going on and everything is running smoothly. And it's the person at the end of the day to make sure that every single person feels seen, feels heard, from your clients to your practitioners. Apex has literally something for everybody to make a practice as turnkey as possible. It is that lifeline that honestly any practice manager could use. So for me, that was huge because I know how huge that is when you feel like you're on an island by yourself in a tiny practice.
Welcome to In Touch with Terri, our power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetic industry that brings you expertise, authenticity, more importantly, solutions that have proven to increase profitability, attract, convert, and retain more patients. And we feature some of the top industry experts as guests. Hi, I'm Terri Ross, former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, and founder and CEO of Apex by Terri Ross and Terri Ross Consulting. Today's episode, I am so super excited. I know I say that every time, but I actually really am excited because our company, both companies are growing exponentially. And I am so thrilled to have the newest member of our Apex and Terri Ross Consulting team, Dana Hatch. Woo-hoo, Dana, welcome.
Thank you. So excited.
So Dana has 14 years of experience in the medical aesthetic space. She has run 4 diamond resort properties, large high-end medical spas. She's been an area manager and a sales trainer for one of the largest medical aesthetic organizations in the country, as well as working on a consulting on a national level for every size medical practice. I mean, Dana just has a wealth of knowledge. And again, I am so freaking excited to have somebody like her be part of our tribe, be part of contributing to the support, serving and educating all of you like we always do. Dana joins us as the Director of Client Success. She will be responsible for helping all of our personal one-on-one clients reach pinnacle success through private coaching, in addition to leading the division for our Apex clients to leverage the platform to maximize their success in their practice. So Dana, thank you again for being here with me. Welcome to our tribe. I would love for everybody listening, for them to learn, just from you, a little bit about you and why you decided to join our company and why you decided to make this change now.
Absolutely. So as you know, I've been in the medical aesthetic space for a long time. This is what I know. This is what I love. I can't imagine being in any other vertical whatsoever. And having watched you over the years and seeing what you stand for and how everything you do is for your clients and for their success and how they can own their own success, and having been in a practice and knowing those struggles day after day and not having that support system, I couldn't imagine being in a better space to help support people and help them get to that place where they know that they are fully supported.
Thank you so much. And I know there's obviously so many different verticals and avenues that you could have taken your career. And I applaud you. I mean, I think that what makes us unique, everybody that works in this company, is that we don't give anecdotal bullshit, right? We didn't read a book and then I'm pitching about marketing, or I'm pitching about sales, but I've never sold anything in my life, or that I've never managed a practice before. I have, you have, Robbie sold a company to private equity, and I know that all of the feedback and support we get from everybody. So again, I always want to applaud my listeners. If you find this valuable, please share it. But thank you so much for your ongoing love and support, because we could not do what we do without all of you. So Dana, I really want to focus this podcast on something that I think is so important. You guys have heard me say many times, again, which is why we developed Apex, that there is no MBA school of aesthetics, right? Would you agree, right? There's nowhere to go for people to learn. And running and owning or being a manager, a practice manager, it is a very difficult job, right? You have a lot of responsibility. You have to lead people. You have to develop a culture that people want to listen to you and follow you. And having done it firsthand, if I didn't come from Fortune 500 and have sort of that strong business acumen perspective, it would have been difficult. And I know people sometimes think it's just being a manager or it's just super easy, but it's not. So I really want to hunker down. So the focus of this podcast today is the art of perfecting practice management, but more importantly, as a practice manager. So with your years of industry experience, you've led teams, you've managed teams. What does a practice manager mean to you?
To me, that is somebody who is your biggest cheerleader. When things are tough, they're leading from the front. They're moving those mountains. They're moving those obstacles so that their people can grow and they can succeed and they can become the best version of themselves. And when it's, things are going great and it's time to celebrate, that's when you take that step back and you let your team be in the spotlight. It's knowing the numbers. It's being the first one there in the morning to make sure that those lights are going on and everything is running smoothly. And it's the person at the end of the day to make sure that every single person feels seen, feels heard, from your clients to your practitioners.
We talk a lot about company culture. Well, candidly, we don't talk about it enough. But that response just came back from 2 surveys for hundreds of practices in the aesthetic space that more team wanted a better company culture. And so you hit some very important points about what it means to be a practice manager. But if you've never done it before, or you were a manager, perhaps in another type of industry, and you want to get into aesthetics, all of those things are important, right? Leading, promoting, cheerleading. But how do you do that? Like, what are some important characteristics and traits that you think a good practice manager must have, not has to have, but must have to lead people and have a successful business? Because at the end of the day, that manager is ultimately responsible for the bottom line. So what characteristics do you think that they need to have?
I think first and foremost, passion for people and passion for helping others. I think that is essential and critical and will carry you through some of those roughest times. Confidence, but not an ego. They need to be very confident in their skill set that they can get the job done, but it doesn't need to be about spotlighting everything that they do. I think that's huge. I also think being organized and being able to delegate and knowing, having that emotional intelligence to be able to ask for help and know that that's not your failure.
Talk to me a little bit about the numbers, because that's great, but I could be the best cheerleader, the best rah-rah, the best people person. But what if I fundamentally am not an analytical person? I don't understand numbers. I don't know what profit means versus goals. I mean, I just don't know. So how important is that piece of being a manager in a business?
That's huge. That is absolutely huge. Now, not everybody is born to be a numbers person. And that's where that emotional intelligence comes in, knowing that you need to ask for help. And that's why I love the Apex platform. I think that makes it so universally easy for people to understand. It breaks it down, it makes it bite-sized, and it really allows you to wrap your arms around it, because not everybody is a numbers person. You might have great leadership skills, but then the numbers completely escape you. Apex makes it so user-friendly that they can understand the numbers.
What were some of the challenges, come from an authentic place? I think I always try to be so real with the listeners and the tribe so they can, let's get down to their level. I know we know what some of the, what are some of the challenges that you have faced being a practice manager, and how have you overcome them?
Oh, it's always personalities. You've got a building full of 100 different personalities, and finding out how to best leverage the best qualities of that and how to, check the ego at the door and really getting everybody to work together. And communication for me is the best way to do that. If everything is transparent, it is black and white, there's no hiding spot, there is nothing but communication. And that leads to a good culture. I mean, for me, that has always been the number one rule to success for me.
I love it. And I think that, communication in anything, I know we teach the layer model in sales, even when you're working with your team, your colleagues, your kids, your spouse, effective communication. And I love what you said too. I mean, to be a leader, you have to study emotional intelligence, right? You can't fly off the handle when things just don't go your way. But let's talk about a difficult team member. What kind of feedback would you give in terms of dealing with somebody who has a strong personality, who perhaps doesn't want to follow the rules?
You always start with coaching and counseling. You try to find out what's driving this person. What's their motivation? Why are they coming from such an aggressive place? Because sometimes that can be the challenge, getting them to open up to understand what their role in the process is and how fundamentally them not being a part of it can disrupt the entire organization. I've had some of my most rock star sales team members that just feel above it and don't want to fall in line. And it's through showing them directly what impact they're having and not in a positive light on the practice.
I love that. And now what do you think about like that whole 30, 60, 90-day plan, looking at performance reviews? How important do you think that is? That's one thing that, again, in corporate, that is a given. I mean, everybody does that. But in these practices, I don't see it very often. I don't see a lot of job descriptions being held accountable to that, and then doing performance reviews so we can keep some checks and balances how people are progressing.
So for me, I can't hold an employee responsible if I haven't given them the tools to be successful. To me, a job description is a given. That's not a benefit. That's not a bonus. That's a given. You sign up for a job, you should know what that job is, and you should know how I expect you to deliver that. So for me, that's just an absolute has to, non-negotiable given. And I also do believe that 30, 60, 90-day check-ins, I don't want to get to the 1-year review where then now I have to let somebody go and they have no idea why. If I'm letting you go, we've had that conversation 14 times. We're not just getting there after one day. So I think that is essential. And when you have those conversations and you have them directly, it's actually a very compassionate thing to do. This gives somebody the chance to grow, to change, or to realize that maybe this organization isn't for them, and then they can shift course and everybody gets what they can out of it and leaves as amicably as possible.
If a practice was looking to bring on and hire a new practice manager, what would you say that you look for? Because again, you really pointed it out. Not everybody is good at everything. So if you had to really sort of pick and choose what characteristics or what skill set would be most advantageous for somebody starting off, or if a practice is looking for a manager, what would you say that is? Again,
I think somebody who, not even necessarily just passionate for medical aesthetics, but passionate for people and passionate for growth, that's essential. That's, something that keeps everybody going. But I also think having someone who is extremely organized, extremely detail oriented, because that's the person who's finding everything that's not allowing them to fall through the cracks. That's something that you need in your practice manager, but also someone who always wants to learn, because nobody knows everything. And somebody who is willing to adapt, willing to change, willing to grow, and willing to learn, I can work with that all day long.
I love that, because what you guys hear me say that often, if we're not learning, we're not growing. And I get it. I didn't come from managing a practice either. There was a lot of things I did not know, and I had to learn, and I sought out expertise and help. And I think that we can all agree that the industry is so competitive, right? There's so many choices. There's so many practices. I'm constantly talking about the why. Why do people go to you? And while people and culture and, what we do day in and day out is so critical, that leadership skill, not everybody has. And so when we talk about personality types and even personality tests, tell me your thoughts on practices incorporating that into their practice so that they can, one, identify who's on their team, and two, put people in positions where they can thrive.
I think that it's essential. I think not only does it do those two things, but it allows you to understand how that person receives information and how they communicate. So as a manager, it gives you a roadmap to communicating with your team. I mean, I don't see how there's any downside to that whatsoever. The more tools a practice has to building that culture and setting everyone up for success, I think that that's essential.
Let's talk about meetings, because I know, right? We've worked together now for a while, and we are big proponents of monthly meetings, talking about goals at the middle of the month, not at the end of the month when you can't make it up. Again, talking about what's on the books for the day, like who are we going to upsell? All right, cross sell. How are we going to educate each other? Who's doing well? Who's not doing well? But I often see, and I'm sure you do too, people are like, God, we have a meeting maybe once a quarter, or there's just no time, or everybody works different shifts. And I get it. All that is true, but you have to invest in your team to feel that these things are important. So how important are meetings, and what are some of the topics that you've discussed in meetings? Or if you want, give the listeners maybe 4 to 5 top things that you think should be incorporated in meetings.
Absolutely. Meetings are essential. I mean, that they are absolutely essential. Communicate. The more you communicate, the more everybody knows exactly what's happening. and you're never going to be caught off guard. Some of the major topics, I think celebrating wins, but also, discussing areas of opportunities, things that could have been done better, but doing it from a place of empathy and growing and learning. Numbers, I think everybody should know where you're pacing for the month and what they can do to drive that number forward. I think that that's essential, and I think it gives everybody a sense of ownership. I think if there's any major events going on in the med spa or in the practice, people should know about that so that everybody can talk about that. Those are the things, the daily operations of what everyone needs to do to be successful. That's what should be discussed.
I want to kind of repeat that back because I would totally concur. I think it's always great to start off any meeting, right? Mm-hmm. How's everybody doing? What's working? What's not? So Dana had said celebrating the wins and then looking and discussing areas of opportunity. She talked about, secondly, the numbers, right? And what does it mean? Numbers can mean a lot of stuff, but you should have a forecast, like an annual forecast. So what are your numbers for the year? Let's break them down per month. Let's break them down per day. Let's break them down per provider, per room. What's your retail goal? We're going to get super nitty gritty here. And we teach you how to do that, by the way, you guys, in Apex. Dana mentioned talking about events, right? What kinds of things do you have going on for the month that you want to celebrate? Would you also talk about maybe any new equipment that somebody, right, that the practice might have brought on board?
Absolutely. Any new treatments, any new practices, anything that is going to be beneficial for them to start discussing with your clients. I mean, these are all opportunities to re-engage them in the practice.
You know what, you guys, and I also want to share something that I think is really important. It's one thing that you could be a practice manager, and that's what this podcast is, but it's nice to bring it down on everyone's level where you're not talking at people. So I think it's really important. And I encourage you to have everybody go around the room, right? And talk about their respective role, what they think's working, what's not, where they're struggling, where they need support. I also think it holds them accountable. They're accountable to themselves. And the other thing from a sales perspective, because this is often what we see, is that you bring on new equipment or you have tons of services or surgeries or retail that you offer, but nobody knows how to sell it. So I do encourage you to do one other thing and maybe pick a topic, either pick a topic, pick a procedure, pick a product, and someone in your team has to literally go around and sell it. Talk about the features, talk about the benefits. What are your thoughts on that, Dana?
I think that that's perfect. I think that gives, again, that sense of ownership, that sense of, belonging and being able to speak to people. And I think that that's also a really good time for role playing as well. If somebody's really apprehensive to have that conversation, being able to do it in an open forum like that will get them a lot more comfortable.
What do you think would make a practice manager not succeed in this space? Like, where do people fall short? Ego.
Ego is the number one downfall and the number one killer to any practice manager and to any practice. If you can't get out of your own way to understand that your job is to make your team better and it's not about you being the star, that will always be your downfall. You'll never see your blind spot and you'll never be able to move forward and have that vision.
I love that. And lastly, for anyone that's listening, what would you say if somebody's struggling or they think they're doing well, but they could do better? Like, what are maybe 3 pieces of advice that you would give somebody that's in this role, in this type of position, and they're just kind of feeling like, I don't know where to go, or I know I could do better, but I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do it. What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to sit down and make a list of everything that they know. Start there. Start with what you know. And then start to poke at that feeling in your gut. What is it that I feel that I don't know that's stressing me out, that's keeping me up at night? And start to really dive into that and put that in another list. From there, start to identify where you can find that information. The more you become comfortable in the uncomfortable, the quicker you move past that and the quicker that you grow. And I think that for me is the biggest thing that drew me to Apex was I've been that practice manager that's, it's 2 a.m. and my brain is going a mile a minute and I don't know how to break this down so that everybody understands it. Apex has literally something for everybody to make a practice as turnkey as possible. It is that lifeline that honestly any practice manager could use. So for me, that was huge because I know how huge that is when you feel like you're on an island by yourself in a tiny practice.
I love it, you guys. And I swear to God, I did not pay her to say that shit. I promise you. But I want to repeat it back. I asked her what could somebody in a practice management role do if they're feeling stuck or they're feeling unsure. And I think this goes in every aspect of our lives. Dana said, make a list. And she said, start with what you know. That's such a positive and confident place. Start with what you know. And then she said, poke at it and what makes you feel anxious for the things that you don't know. And then where you can go to get help, where you can go to get support. And I know that, it's not your credit card or you have to perhaps go to your owner. But I think Dana, coming from managing big medical spas, these other large resorts, and again, for her to want to work here, this is exactly why we built Apex, because we did back into all of these challenges and these gaps that practices have had for so many years that we've seen. And we really built that to help and support you guys so that you had a tool. And now you don't just have me and Robbie and Mitch and Carrie and Ronnie, and I could go Mike and Robbie, and I could go on and on. You now have Dana, right? You now have Dana. Again, Dana is our Director of Client Success. And I genuinely mean that. That title is not just a word, right? Everything we do here and everything that we believe in is really to support you and to support your confidence and to support your practice and your people and your culture, and to, again, make sure that you are not wasting time and money, that you are operating efficiently so that you can ultimately understand the things that we've talked about on this podcast. So Dana, thank you so much. I think you shared a wealth of information for the listeners, for our tribe, Terri's tribe. And you guys, if you want to learn more, please visit apexplatform.com. You can schedule a demo. Certainly don't hesitate, as always. We love the feedback. DM me, go on our Facebook group. We're super excited. Again, we're in season 4 and we're super jazzed. And Dana, thank you so much for being on here with me. Amazing to have you on the team and be such a strong contributor.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. For more information regarding Apex, the aesthetic game changer, visit apexplatform.com. That's apexplatform.com. We'll include links to everything in the episode notes, including links to all of the ways that you can follow Terri Ross Consulting on all social media platforms. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast from whichever platform you might be listening from. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of In Touch with Terri.